Some More Outdoor, Episode 17.
Welcome to Some More Outdoor, where we speak with authors, entrepreneurs, and business owners about how the outdoors has affected their life and their projects. This show is to remind you of the healing properties of the outdoors. So, are you ready to learn what the nature effect can do for your life? Well, here's your host, Brett Trout.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Some More Outdoor. I'm your host, Brett Trout, and this is the podcast dedicated to reminding you to get out and experience the nature effect. My goal is to help you reestablish your connection with nature so you can live with childlike wonder again. So thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited to have a very special guest, Timothy Lawson, here with us to talk about his outdoor lifestyle. So Tim, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Brett, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show.
I'm just so appreciate you coming on. So Tim has served 5 years in the United States Marine Corps, spending the majority of his career as a Marine security guard, protecting U.S. embassies in Algeria, Russia, and Peru. He was inspired to start the 1-2-Many project after seeing media coverage of the epidemic of veteran suicide concentrate on the statistics rather than human beings caught in the crisis. As a veteran and a survivor of suicidal behavior, Tim wanted to change the conversation to engage the broader community in proactive solutions. So Tim, I've given our audience a little overview about you, but why don't you go ahead, take a moment, and just share a little bit more information about yourself.
Okay, thanks. I reign from the Great Northwest. It's where I grew up and spent the first almost 20 years of my life. Joined the United States Marine Corps shortly after a bout with cancer. So the early part of my life was full of challenges and rewards right off the bat. Got an opportunity to become a Marine security guard, which was probably probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. Getting a chance to travel the world and experience different cultures, meet different people, go see some really cool outdoors in different areas. Now as of today, I find myself finishing my broadcast journalism degree at American University, and I founded Lawson Entertainment just a couple years ago. That's turned into a podcast network full of powerful and entertaining podcasts. And to say I'm really comfortable with where my life is right now, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And I just want to say from all of us at Some More Outdoor is just thank you for what you've done for our country. And the topic that you speak on is so important. And a lot of people, I was sharing this with my wife last night, explaining who I was going to be interviewing today. And she's like, what does that have to do with Some More Outdoor? And I explained, about the lifestyle outside of what he talks about. Yeah. But she really was surprised at the information that I was providing her based off of the information you gave me about the suicide rate in the armed forces. So thanks again for just bringing that to our attention and just making us aware of that.
Thank you.
So Tim, I like to start off the show with a nature quote or a mantra that you live by. It doesn't necessarily have to be due to nature, but how Some More Outdoor listeners can apply this quote or this mantra into their life.
So this quote comes from a lyric by hip-hop artist Joe Budden. He said, "I'm grateful for having gratitude." And when I heard this and was able to apply it to my life, it allowed me to not only appreciate what was going on in my life, but also be able to take one step back further and realize how grateful I should be that I have the opportunity and the emotional capacity to be able to experience the gratitude that I'm having in my life. And I think that gratitude is such an important part of emotional health and experiencing anything, especially the outdoors. I grew up on Whidbey Island, which is, arguably one of the most beautiful areas in the entire country, and up in the San Juans in Washington State. And, we were often reminded especially in the rural parts, that this is something that we have to take care of because we've been blessed with an opportunity to live here, and it's our responsibility, and it's through gratitude that we're able to realize this and really experience it the way that we should.
Well, and I've been a lot just kind of mentally thinking about gratitude and just going over what things I've been grateful for. Recently I just lost my father, and so I've been thinking about his legacy and what he's given to me, and just being more grateful for the things that I have in my life. And one of the things that you had mentioned was living in Washington and growing up there, and people don't get out as much. And I notice it here living in Fresno, is that people don't get out to the beautiful places that have been set aside for us, such as Yosemite and Sequoia. Most people that live here have never even been there, let alone go there on a regular basis. So they're not as grateful as they should be, living in such a great environment that we have around us. So thank you for sharing that with us. Gratitude is huge. So Tim, I'd like to, in the beginning of the show, I talk about helping encourage people to reconnect with their childhood and start living with that childlike wonder, because in our work life, in the corporate environment, and being a manager for a corporation for 12 years, you get kind of stressed out, overwhelmed, and you forget to live like you did when you were a child, with that fun, energetic enthusiasm and being outside all the time. So I want to take people back to a time in your life when you were a child and tell us a story of an experience that you had of the outdoors, and really take us to that time and share with us that story.
Yeah, so the Cascade Mountains are right next to us here in Washington State, and in the wintertime, there were, me and my family would get the opportunity to go up to Mount Baker and go sledding or have snowball fights or just whatever activity we can manage to do in the snow. And I remember, it was such a novelty, right? Because we had to, we had the planet, and it had to be like a decision to go do it, and so like it was always, it wasn't the same as going and finding a hill here in town and go sledding down it or whatnot, because we were up in this different area, and it was like this big thing to go do it, and so like we were that much more excited to do it. And I just remember loving that the only thing to do when we were up there was to play in the snow. There was nothing else to distract us. There was nothing else to persuade us to do otherwise. It was, we're up there, and the only option we have is to play in the snow. And so I remember loving it so much, and loving an opportunity to to have fun with my family, and in an environment where they can't be distracted either. Telling the story makes me realize that I need to get in more areas where me and the people around me can't be distracted by other things. But it was such a privilege that you don't really realize that you have until you look back on it.
Well, and that's, you talk about the snow, and we used to do that where I grew up as well. We'd head up to the mountains and just play in the snow and do the exact same thing. And it wasn't something that you could just do. You definitely had to plan it. Yeah. But, and what I like about that is it inspires people and reminds people of certain times in their life when they were a child growing up, of those times that their parents had taken them up, or a friend had taken them up somewhere that they could experience things like that. And I also want to make sure that we encourage others who have children right now but are stuck in that environment where they can't get out as much, and maybe they have 2 weeks vacation a year, and when they get off, they're not doing the fun family stuff that they can, so that their kids can have the memories like you and I have. So I appreciate you telling that story. So I want to dive into an outdoor experience that you've had. So tell us a story of a time when you visited one of the most beautiful places you had ever been to, and take us to that time in your life and tell us that story. Really dive in and share the experience and the effect that nature had on you at that moment.
So, Brad, I've been to over a dozen countries and have gotten an opportunity to see plenty, both in urban environments and in outdoor environments. And everywhere you go when you're traveling, there's people who have also traveled that'll tell you things that you should do when you're in that country. And then there's people who haven't traveled who still think they need to tell you what you should do when you go to those countries. Eiffel Tower, Red Square, the Blue Mosque, all the traditional touristy places in all these areas. But the one recommendation and the one hyped up, you have to go see it thing that I went and saw that was not overrated, that was just as cool as everybody said it was Machu Picchu. And getting an opportunity to see that was just breathtaking. Getting there is a challenge in itself. For any listener that isn't familiar with Machu Picchu, it's ruins in the mountains of Peru, and so we had to take a bus to we had to take a bus to a train station, and then from Cusco, so not even from Lima, we were in Cusco, take a bus to a train station, take a small train from this little town to another little town called Aguas Calientes, which is at the base of the mountain, and then so if you've ever seen a picture of Machu Picchu, there's like the ruins and everything, and then there's this like bigger peak like right behind it. Like in all the famous pictures, you can see like this peak right behind it. Well, that peak is called Huayna Picchu, and people are allowed to go up there, but it's regulated. So I think it's only 400 people a day, I think, can go up there, or at least that's what it was when I went up there 3 or 4 years ago. So there's a limited amount of people. Well, backpackers and people who travel are aware of this, and it is competitive to get up there because it's pretty much first come, first serve. Like you get up there and you have to have your ticket stamped with a special stamp for them to let you to go up this thing. So the first bus to take people up to the from Aguas Calientes all the way up to the to where Machu Picchu is, that happened at 6:00 in the morning. Everybody in Aguas Calientes told us if you take that bus, you'll be too late and you won't be able. I mean, you'll get into Machu Picchu, but you won't be in time for a stamp into Huayna Picchu, and so to get up there, you had to hike up there on your own all the way up this mountain. So we woke up at 4:00 in the morning. It's dark. The person that I with was not a morning person, but God bless her for tolerating my desire to go up Huayna Picchu. And we just start walking and we hike up this mountain, and there's no signal like how far you are, like hey, halfway there, or just like one more set of stairs. There's none of this. So it's dark, you don't know where you're going, you're just following a big group of people that are going up this thing. After I think we had been climbing that thing for like 90 minutes at least, and it's just stairs just straight up, and we finally get to the top. I slip in line just in time to get stamped, and so I was put in the second half of the group that go up Huayna Picchu. So we're walking around Machu Picchu, and it's just mind blowing to think that it's 2014, Brett, and I would have no idea how to irrigate a place that high up in the air, and these dudes did it centuries ago, and so it was just amazing to see all these ruins and to hear the stories of like what they had to do to make a civilization in there work and thrive and prosper. And you're so impressed by the human ability. And not to mention, you're there in the middle. I mean, it's green everywhere. There's mountains, there's ridges. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I finally get my opportunity to go up Huayna Picchu, and I hike up it. It takes me about 30 minutes to get to get there. You literally get to the peak of this thing, and you look down. Machu Picchu now is way smaller. It looks like this, small little painting off into the distance, and you can just see the entire mountain ridge all around, all the forest and everything. And it has to be one of the most beautiful and breathtaking and rewarding things. I hiked all the way up that thing to get there. So that made the view even more rewarding. And if you ever go to Peru, you have to find a way to schedule Machu Picchu, whether you do the 4-day hike to get there or you do what I did, the traditional train up. You have to take an opportunity to go see Machu Picchu because it's absolutely amazing.
What a great story. It's like you do, like you said in the beginning, you see all that one famous picture that's
Yeah.
always around on the internet. But to be in a location like that and to experience it and to put in the effort to get out there in those places. And what I want people to take away from that is that there's so many different beautiful places around the world. And a lot of times they're not easy getting to those places. You have to put effort into it. But there are certain places that people can go to that they can even just drive through, like near, going to Yosemite or Sequoia. You can drive through these national parks that we have in our country and still kind of experience of that. Hopefully you stop, get out, and take a little hike just to get in the full experience of it.
Yeah.
But Machu Picchu just sounds like such an amazing place. And the picture that I have in my head as you're telling it, visualizing you hiking up early in the morning, when the sun comes up and it's just so beautiful and so green.
Yeah.
I imagine it to be green anyways because it's such high up.
As a guy who came from the Northwest, my breath was taken away by how green it was. Like that's how mind blowing it was. The only other time that I had like a surreal moment of being physically present somewhere is when I was in Red Square in Moscow, Russia, for a totally different reason. But those two experiences were the only ones where you see the Eiffel Tower and you're like, oh, I've seen
Yes.
and everything else. But standing in Red Square in Russia and standing in Machu Picchu were the two times where like it took me a while to wrap my head around like how awesome that was.
Well, and that's, and we don't get to experience those all the time.
Yeah.
But to have those, impactful experiences, they change who we are as a person. And that's my goal, is to help people live that lifestyle by getting outdoors and experiencing the feeling that you and I have when we go to places like that, when we go to those most beautiful places that we've ever been, and how they have an impact on us.
Yeah.
So I want to lead that into what I call the nature effect, because literally that's what the effect that nature had on you when you were out there. So, and today, how does the nature effect have an impact in your business and your life?
I currently reside in Washington, D.C., and I've been a city boy for most of my life. I mean, I grew up in a small town, but me and my family knew that, I had that mentality. And so I spent the better part of, the past decade in cities. D.C., most of the cities that I visited, most of the times that I traveled, I just stayed in the city, like Paris and Istanbul, Vilnius and whatnot. I was posted in Algiers and Moscow and Lima, so I'm used to the city environment. And the nature effect is just that contrast of a completely different environment for a completely different reason, and going from the hustle and bustle of a city where I have to control my environment and I have to control the stimulation that I get from all these things around me. Whereas when I go into nature, I can completely let go of that and I can just let what my environment decides to stimulate me with just happen and enjoy it. And it's one of the reasons why my girlfriend and I love going hiking. She lives in a city as well in Ohio, and so it's when we get that opportunity to, and it doesn't take much. We don't have to drive for hours and hours and hours. Usually about 10, 15 minutes out of a city, you can find, a park or some sort of environment like this. But it's nice to just have that contrast and to sort of let your mind and spirit sort of hit a reset button and just you get to, and it sort of goes back to my childhood experience where there's nothing here to distract us. We get to focus on just one or two things that are available to us, which is taking a nice hike and enjoying ourselves. To me, that's what the nature effect is. And it lets me, I'm not going to say, I would love to tell you that I never think about work or whatever when I'm out there, but of course that doesn't happen. It's human nature to think about our professional life and where we're progressing and whatnot. But what it does is, when I'm in those environments and those stuff start coming to mind, I can turn to Shannon and talk with her about it, and I can usually start exercising my thoughts about my professional life and stuff in a much more comfortable environment that's less demanding. And I usually get more moments of clarity. I usually find when I get back to my work life, like where I'm going to focus. So even if it mentally can't separate me from parts of my professional life, it allows me to be more deliberate about what I'm doing when I'm thinking about it and contemplating things, and it's much more productive.
You said so much great information there, man. It's exactly what I believe the nature effect to be. I want to start off by saying that, you got out there to let go of the control that you had, and just to kind of be you when you're out there. You talked about having more clarity out there. When you get out there and, it's hard not to think about your business, but that's why a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk with, they go outdoors to be able to eliminate all the distractions in their life, to relax, to breathe in and just allow that stress to go. And it's during those times that we can be quiet out in nature and just listening to the sounds or talking with a loved one, that there's something that comes in, an idea comes in, or, you think of something and you can become more focused on that particular idea. And then when you get back, you're all excited. You have more energy to be able to get back and work that aspect into your business. And,
absolutely.
You and I both, we get out on a regular basis to be able to become inspired. And so there's a lot of people that don't do that. There's a lot of people that are working in an environment where it's just constant bombardment, stress, overeating, just all these things that we typically do when we're in an environment that's uncomfortable, like being under, unnatural lighting, like fluorescent lighting and things like that. But really getting out there and just releasing all that tension that we build up from our week or from our day or whatever, and getting out there and just letting go of that control and just being that child that we can be, to be able to, get inspired and be excited about life again. So thank you for sharing that.
I think the real difference is when you have an idea that you want to ponder in your normal life, it's hard to get time to think about it, right? Because everything else is distracted. Everything else is already a priority, so you can't make this new idea a priority. But when you're away from that environment, you know that when you go back, all those priorities are still going to be there demanding your time. So now's a great time to ponder on this idea, and it allows you to completely isolate this idea and think about it without it having consequence in your normal routine.
Absolutely. Well, and even if you don't have an idea or don't have clarity on what you're supposed to be doing, just getting out there and just not even worrying about having to think about that idea or thinking about what you're supposed to be doing. It's those times when you're kind of just nudged, and those ideas come to you.
Yeah.
So let's dive into something that inspired you when you've gotten outdoors. So what was one idea or one concept that you had that was inspired from your time outdoors?
So the One Too Many Veteran Suicide Project came to me when I went on a walk. Now, I was still in the city when this happened, but my decision to go outside and start and get my body moving and to enjoy my environment and enjoy what was around me, that experience is what led, that is when I conceptualized the One Too Many Veteran Suicide Project. And I prize my opportunity to go for a walk every day. Like the weather here in Washington over the past week has been like horrible, and it makes me sad that like I can't comfortably go outside and go for a walk. Even though I wasn't, in this area of nature and whatnot, I was still in this like nice neighborhood with the tree with trees around and stuff, and just getting outside and moving and sort of and getting into that routine is what led to what is now the focal point of my career at the moment. And I've had similar experiences when I just decided to just go for a walk. There's a little bit of a woods behind my apartment in DC, and it's just enough separation for me to go into that experience we were just talking about sort of focusing on an idea and thinking about it. Even if it's for only 10 minutes, it's a nice escape, and it's a quick way for me to exercise a bunch of ideas. And so, one moment of inspiration was definitely the One Too Many project.
That's great to hear. And what I like what you said about that, not only, was inspired to have a great business idea, was the fact that you just, even living in the city, you got out for a walk, just to walk around in your neighborhood to see the trees, maybe go out and get that little bit of separation for the woods behind your house. A lot of neighborhoods now have parks that were built in this particular neighborhood. So for people to be able to get out there and do that, just to step outside of their house and start changing their life is huge.
Some cities are really smart with this stuff. DC has a lot of little parks and whatnot plugged around. Rock Creek Park is like this long creek that there's some people travel through. There's some roads and stuff, but there's less housing and there's still more woods and stuff like that. And I mean, look, Central Park's right in the middle of Manhattan.
Right.
And they've managed to be able to keep that. I mean, that's prime real estate. That's worth that's a multi-million-dollar plot. Or at least just the little plots in there would be multi-million dollars. But yet the city has managed to keep that there because it's a nice escape for the people of Manhattan to get into an area of nature. Columbus, Ohio is really good. Boston has a few parks running, around inside the city. So I mean, some cities have been really smart and very good at maintaining these areas of nature, allowing their residents to get that quick escape, even right there in the urban environment.
Well, and I'm so thankful that we've had people and ancestors that have set aside places like that for us.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't imagine not having places like that. I know in Fresno we have one called Woodward Park, which is another area like that, not as big as Central Park, but it's a place where people can go and they have events and they have races and just different things like that people can get out and do. So a lot of people that you can just check on your local Park and Rec's website and just find different places that you can go to and experience what the nature effect can do for you and become inspired to create a business, to change who you are, to lose weight, or whatever it is, whatever ailment or whatever problem you're having in your life right now. The outdoors can inspire you to make a change in your life.
Yep.
So, Tim, let's try to jump right into some of the final questions on this, and just some quick questions and what the S'more Outdoor listeners can learn from you. And what do you do when you get outdoors?
Usually walk, hike, some sort of movement and activity.
When you don't spend time outdoors, what negative effects do you see in your life and your business?
Start getting cabin fever a little bit. You feel, again, going into nature is that contrast that I like, right? And so it's a break from a routine. And so when that's not happening, I find myself drowning in routine. Sometimes it feels like life is almost like snowballing, where I feel like even when things aren't getting more busy, things are still going like quicker. After like a couple weeks of not getting outdoors, I feel like I'm just naturally thinking and moving faster, but not like in a good way. And so I don't get that reset. I don't get that step away that I need. And sometimes it's hard to stay focused when that doesn't happen.
Well, and I love what you said, drowning in routine.
Yeah.
Because we all think about, that's a fear that everybody has of drowning and that feeling of not being able to come up for air. And it's a scary feeling, but you incorporate that into your daily life and just being stuck in a routine. And that's how a lot of people feel, but they don't know how to relate to that feeling. So drowning in routine, I love it.
Find a movie that my inspiration to go outdoors doesn't come from movies about the outdoors. It comes from movies about people with like bad corporate routines.
Yes, absolutely.
Like Office Space is a good motivation for me to be like, nope, that's not my life. I need to get out of it.
Exactly. So how do you make sure that it's one of the most important things to do in your life?
Fortunately, I have an amazing significant other who also values her time outdoors, and so it's as easy as just sort of letting her know, like, hey, we should go hiking or something soon. And one or both of us will take the initiative on finding a way to make that happen, whether it's planning a weekend away to an area where we want to go hiking or just taking, a few hours out of a Saturday to go somewhere and walk around and stuff. So, it's all about just, we have our quick trips, we have our long trips, we know how to best fit those into our routine. And like I said, I have that place behind my apartment. There's other places in DC that I really value for my walks and stuff. And knowing how long it takes to accomplish that is important because I can realistically, I have a half an hour. That's actually perfect for me to, go walk into the woods behind my place and come back and still be, on time for my stuff. Or, I have nothing going on today. So, I can go venture out into an area where I haven't gone yet. And, just knowing what it really means as a time commitment it makes it easier to make time for it or fit it into your routine. And then, of course, having an accountability partner like I do in my girlfriend makes it a little bit easier as well.
Tim, can you share one of your favorite places that you like to go to get away and think and what that place means to you?
I've thought about this for a while, and I actually don't have like a specific place that like my heart has a desire on. I do have a person that I like to be with that's more important to me than the place. I've realized that as long as I have the companionship, I'm getting so much more out of my experience. I suppose I do like walking around the National Mall down in DC because it helps me experience gratitude again because I'm reminded of how amazing that city is and how important it is for people to live there and grow a life there, and that's all of that's evident right there on the National Mall, which, for your listeners who don't know, that's where the Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial is and stuff in DC. And it's nice because it's sort of Central Park-ish in the way that, you're surrounded by all these buildings and stuff, but you're actually like in the middle of this, plot of grass and these random monuments all over the place. And there's always people jogging or walking or tourists walking around taking photographs, and all of it reminds me of how amazing the city is. And so I would say that's probably somewhere that I like to go for an experience that I feel each time that I go there.
Well, and thanks for clearing the National Mall too, because I was thinking, okay, the National big giant mall or whatever, So somebody from the California, I didn't know it was called that. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, I always forget to clarify that because I used to do the same thing, before I moved to DC, when people would be like, "Oh yeah, we went and saw the National Mall," and I was like, "You went to DC and went to a mall?"
I was thinking the world's largest mall type of thing, So it's funny. So, what's one of the best advice that you have for someone who wants to get out more but struggles with a limited amount of time that they have?
It goes back to that, like just knowing how much time certain things take. So again, I know a half an hour is perfect amount of time for me to leave my apartment, go through the woods behind my house, and then come back on the street on the other side and walk back to my apartment. I know I can fit that at the pace that I usually walk within a half hour. And it's great because there's a lot of times where I'll wake up and, I can briefly get through my day or through my morning routine and realize, hey, I have enough time for this. Deciding to walk somewhere instead of other modes of transportation if you have an opportunity. For me, walking is the preferred mode of transportation. Like when I need to go somewhere, that's the first consideration. Unfortunately, I don't get to do it as often as I'd like because, I don't have 3 hours to get somewhere. Having that mentality, you'll start finding that you'll start finding ways to get out and at least get active and get moving a little bit more. It's sort of like, it's like any other routine or anything other to do. If you don't do it, like it atrophies, right? You don't get into, your mind's not ready and prepared for it. So the more you try to do it, or at least the more you think about trying to do it, the more prepared you are and can take the opportunity when it arises.
Well, and just starting with just a little bit.
Yeah.
I was thinking after one of my interviews, and the gentleman talked about just getting out there, starting out with 5 minutes. And immediately what came to mind was, for me, 5 minutes of sunshine. Now, I know that's hard when you're up in Washington and there's no sun for days at a time, but just that concept of, 5 minutes of sunshine, 5 minutes of getting outside in a natural lighting, whether it's, the sun's out or not, it's still better than being indoors where it's unnatural lighting.
Yeah,
so
I met with coffee with a friend a few nights ago, and I could have. It was about a mile away, and I decided to walk instead of take the car, and it was wonderful. It was when I got there, I felt so much better. Like my mind was clear, and it would have been just as easy to hop in the car. Would have been quicker or whatever, but I had an opportunity to walk, and so I took it, and it was rewarding.
So Tim, share some final words of encouragement and how S'more Outdoor listeners can connect with you.
A bunch of like inspiring quotes just came to mind, and of course they all mushed together, and I was like, saying that would not make sense. There's a lot of quotes that sort of get to the point of, it's not about like the destination, it's about the journey. It's not about what happens while you're doing something, it's how you experience it, all this sort of stuff. And it's really true. It's when you have an opportunity to pause and reflect on what's going on and where you're at, when you're somewhere unique, even just taking 5 or 10 seconds to really try to like embrace like what's going on and just feel gratitude for it. It's emotionally healthy, and it can lead to less stress. It can lead to less anxiety. I handle stress and anxiety better because I've learned how to experience gratitude and appreciate the things that are going on in my life. And it's funny because I'm not practicing how to deal with stress. I'm practicing how to do the opposite of being stressed. And that's actually helping me address stress when it comes. And so being able to recognize that, recognizing what makes you peaceful, not just happy, what makes you feel peace, what makes you feel gratitude, and then being able to apply that and experience it is going to make you more emotionally stable, more emotionally happy. Of course, all of this ties into what I've learned with the One Too Many project, so I emphasize it all the time. And it's extremely important to be able to get into this, mental routine of being able to experience gratitude. If anybody wants to connect with me, I'm on Twitter at TimLawson21, Instagram with the same handle, and they can email me, timlawson21@gmail.com.
Well, thanks for sharing your story with us today, Tim. And S'more Outdoor, I just want to encourage you to really think about what Tim has talked about and shared with you today. Here's a guy who's served our country and he's just been all over the world in his travels and his experiences, sharing with us his experience in Machu Picchu, how the outdoors, he's experienced the nature effect in his life, and just really took us back to that childhood memory of playing in the snow and snowball fights. So I want you to, after the show, just kind of think about your childhood and think about all the stuff that's going on in your life right now and how you can get back and really start living with that childlike wonder again. So all the information, the show notes will be up on Tim's page at s'moreoutdoor.com/Tim. And, it'd also have a link to his website. So I encourage you to connect with him. I encourage you to just get out there and really enjoy life and spend more time outdoors. Don't take for granted what's around you, but it can change your life and it can help you become a better person. It can help you become more inspired. So once again, Tim, thank you so much for joining us today on this edition of S'more Outdoor.
Thank you, Brett, so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
That's it for today's episode of S'more Outdoor. Once again, I'm so excited to be here with you today to share the stories and outdoor experiences from people like Tim. A few things before I go. You can head on over to s'moreoutdoor.com to see a recap of Tim's show on his show notes page, along with ways that you can connect with him. Just type Tim in the search bar. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, we would love it if you would leave a comment on his page where Tim and I will respond. To stay updated with new episodes, I'd appreciate if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating and review. This helps to get the show noticed so others like you and I can learn about how the nature effect can have an impact in their lives and become inspired by these stories. And make sure while you're there, sign up for the S'more Outdoor newsletter. That way you won't miss out on any exclusive content I send out. So I hope that Tim's story has inspired you to reconnect with nature and start living with childlike wonder again. Thank you for tuning in to the show that's changing lives around the world. Until next time, I challenge you to do something this week to get S'more Outdoor.